Hey everybody, Mr. Sulik here, introducing the next lesson that's called creating your first Tinkercad object. In the first video was a basic rundown of a tutorial on the functionality of Tinkercad, the program, a basic introduction to what computer aided design is all about, just a basic, just kind of a navigation of doing just some basic things. Now we're ready to move on to some more complex things with using Tinkercad. So in order to do this lesson, obviously you need to have an account set up through Tinkercad. So make sure that you've done that. If you've had trouble getting an account connected, please let me know and I can help you with that. The focus of today's lesson is we are going to create your first Tinkercad object based upon a common tool, a wrench. Eventually, you would, in theory, print something that would look a little bit like this. Okay, so it's not a crescent wrench, just a regular handheld wrench. And it's comprised of actually three different objects that are connected to each other. So we're going to be taking some of the principles and things that we did in the tutorial and now mastering those skills. So I'm going to open up Tinkercad. I'm going to click Create a New Design. And then from here, I am going to look at this overall design, creating your first Tinkercad, and understand that I'm going to break it into three parts. The very first part is I'm going to break it into a cylinder on the rounded end, okay, otherwise known as the ring. But I need some additional information. The information that I know on both ends, which will end up being two cylinders, the X and Y axes are going to equal an inch in diameter. The Z-axis, or the height of those ends, are going to rest at a 1/4 inch. So the height here of them are going to be at a 1/4 inch. So length and width, inch by an inch, 1/4 inch height. The middle, the handle here, as you see here, handle right here, right, that's going to be 4 inches long on the x-axis. The y-axis, so this is 4 inches long right here. The y-axis, which would be from this point to this point, is going to be 1/2 inch. And then the z-axis, or the height of the handle, pretend we're laying flat. So for instance, if this were laying flat like this, the height from the base here to the top of the wrench would be a 1/4 inch. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cylinder. So I'm going to go to my tools here. I'm going to pull out a cylinder. And I'm going to, first of all, make it into the dimensions that I need. So you'll notice right off the bat it says 20 by 20, and you're looking at that going, wait a second, it doesn't look like 20 inches, because it's not, it's 20 millimeters. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to hit Edit Grid. I'm going to change from millimeters to inches. And the width and the length, I'm going to change those as well. As we discussed in the previous video, we know that our work plane on the MakerBot printers are 6 by 6. And we're going to update the grid. My next step is I want to create a hole within this cylinder. So I'm going to pull out the cylinder hole as well. First thing here, I'm going to change the dimensions. Instead of being 0.78 of an inch, I'll move it up to 1. I'm going to change this to 1. And then I'm going to go along the Z height. Again, how tall should that cylinder be? 1/4 inch. So if I were to convert a 1/4 inch to a decimal, it would be 0.25. Very good. Now this hole is going to have to be, the diameter of this hole is going to have to be much smaller than this. So in this design here, I notice, and we're not going to put the ridges here, okay, or the catches here. It's just going to be a smooth surface in the middle, but it's going to need to leave a rim around it. Now, I didn't say how much that distance should be from inside the rim to outside the rim, but it needs to have a rim. So I'm going to change this, instead of being a 1 by 1, knowing that this is a 1 by 1, I'm going to change this to a 0.75. Change this to a 0.75. So there's going to be about a 1/4 inch difference between the hole, or the inside of the rim, and the outside of the rim. And then I'm going to change the Z distance, or height rather. I'm going to change that to 0.25. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over a little bit. And what I could do if I wanted to is I could try to eyeball this and get it like perfectly centered in there. But we already know a function that does that for us. So I'm going to left click and then drag to get both shapes in there. It shows me I have 2 shapes. I'm not going to hit combine yet, but rather we're going to do align. I want it here, right in the middle. Okay, and as you can see, it goes right into the middle. Now I want to make sure, if I check the back side, that it goes through the middle. So sometimes if this height, okay, is a little too short, it won't go all the way through the material. So I want to ensure that that happens. And I do that by just kind of moving my plane around a little bit. Okay. All right. From here, I'm going to hit my home button. From here, I'm going to combine this because right now it is not its own shape. So I'll click and drag. I'm going to go from 2 shapes to 1 shape. And now I'm going to push this off to the side. Okay. And as I did that, I want to make sure that nothing changes. Okay. So sometimes, and I've done this mistake before, when I move an object, I change the dimensions. And I don't want to do that. Okay. So right now I've got a circle. My next step is I need to create the handle. Okay. This portion of the tool right here. And in the handle, okay, what do we know? Well, we know that the handle has to be 4 inches long. So the width, okay, I'm sorry, the length of this handle has to be 4 inches long. And then the width, okay, has to be a 1/4 inch. I'm sorry, not 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch. Coming back over here, I'm going to drag my box out to my work plane. I'm going to change those dimensions right away. So first dimension, actually, I'm going to hit my home button so I get a little bit better perspective. I'm going to change this. So I want that x-axis to increase by 4 inches. Okay. Well, you notice something, that I didn't do that right. Okay. It should be actually here. I want it to increase by 4 inches. All right. So it comes out pretty big here. Well, I got to change the dimensions some more. So I got the right length, but I don't have the right width. So I want to change this, and that should be 0.50, which identifies as 1/2 inch. Now I want to check out my height. I want to change that to be even with this earlier object. It needs to be a 1/4 inch tall. So 0.25. All right. So now I've got that right there. So right now we have the ring, we've got the handle. They're not connected yet. So let's go ahead and connect them. So I'm going to take both objects, click and drag, shows me I have my 2 shapes, and now I want to hit align. I want to move that ever so slightly in, but that's way too much. So the align tool, although it's very handy at times, sometimes it's not necessarily always the best tool. Sometimes it's just a better off of you making sure that I merge that handle right there. See how it connects to the ring, but doesn't go too far in? Just like in my example here, it goes into, okay, but it doesn't go beyond. Okay, if you can kind of see that. All right. So from here then, I want to click, and I'm going to go ahead and click combine or group. Now it becomes one. All right. So I got 2/3 of this tool done. I'm going to move this over a little bit. I'm just going to end up moving a little bit off the screen. Okay. And just for example, just for purposes here, I'm going to actually increase the width and the length to an 8x8. So I got a little bit more room to work with. All right. Final step. All right. Step 3 is now I want to construct my jaw. What do I know about the jaw? It's very similar to the cylinder on the opposite end. The XY, the length by width is 1 inch. The height is 1/4 inch. But I'm going to have to do something different than I had to do earlier. Okay, so I'm going to take out the cylinder. I'm going to get my dimensions right away. Let me move this up so I can see a little bit better. I'm going to move that to 1 inch by 1 inch. Looks good so far. This is where it's going to change quite a bit. It's going to go to 0.25. I'm going to bring the cylinder out, the hold cylinder. I'm going to change the dimensions exactly the same way that I did it over here, just for consistency. So I'm going to move this to 0.75, 0.75, and then change this to 0.25. All right. So now I'm going to align these two shapes together. Click Align, centered, centered, right there in the middle. Just double check, make sure I can see through the back end. Looks good so far. However, is it one shape or two shapes? Okay. It's still two. So what I need to do is hit group, and now it's see-through. But I'm not quite done yet. Okay, I'm not quite done yet. In fact, I'm going to back up a step. I'm going to go back to here. Okay. I need to change this, as you can observe here. I need to create a hexagonal shape to insert here. So I'm going to go to my shapes, and I'm going to scroll down, and chances are I'm going to find a hexagon shape. At least I hope I can. Okay, actually, I'm sorry, a polygon shape. So I'm going to take this polygon and drag this out. But instead of keeping it a solid, I'm going to make it a hole. So virtually any object in here, I can make it so it makes a hole of something. So I'll hit my home button just so I get a better perspective. Now, I want to change this to, let's go 0.75. 0.75 here. And then I want to go 0.25 here. All right. So now I'm going to move this here to create that shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag, and as you're going to see three things pop up, three shapes. See how it says 3 instead of 2? Because I have the two hold objects, the cylinder and the polygon, in addition to the cylinder that I started with. I'm going to click group, and boom. Okay, so it's got a little bit of an end to it. Now you notice that on here, and we'll go back to here, you notice on a handheld wrench like this, there's a little bit of a tilt here. So what you need to do is click onto that, and see my arrow here? I'm going to turn this ever so slightly to about 22 or so, 22 and a half. And now I'm going to attach it to my handle. So I want to meet it, but I don't want it to go further than that. All right. Okay. From here then, I'm going to select both objects. I'm going to click combine or group. And now I've got a wrench. If I were to do this back over again, I probably would pick a different shape just to give it more truly more of a true wrench look to it. But for purposes, it's just fine. I don't know about you. My lights turn off every now and then. But that doesn't really look like a wrench because it's orange. All right. Most wrenches that I have ever had are of a chrome color. So I'm going to change that color to gray. All right. So from here, you're going to share the wrench that you have created. Okay. So this is one that you created. So as far as file name goes, I would change the file name, type in wrench. Okay. There's two ways you can share this with me. Number one, you can do a screenshot, which I'm not going to show you how to do because I'm on a Macintosh. It's going to be different on your Chromebook. But if you know how to do a screenshot, you could submit it that way. Otherwise, you can click send to, and then it says picture of your design. I would hit download, and it'll work just the same for you. It'll save it to your computer's storage or memory, and it'll store it just like this. Okay. Now it has to be of a perspective that it can tell it's actually a wrench. So it must be either, I want to do that. It's either going to be a view, a topographical view like this, or it's got to be a view like this. Either one. Okay. So it shouldn't be something like this or like this. Okay. It needs to be either homed or top. Okay. Preferably, this is really the best view because then I can see the depth, or rather the height of your wrench. Again, either a screenshot or click send to. It saves the file to your computer, and then you recall that file when you put it into Google Classroom. All right. So this video is a little bit shorter than the previous one. Make sure that that's what you are doing, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.